Monarch is building the future for those interested in one wallet that consolidates the best services and functionality into one simple and easy to use app. Monarch will empower users to control all aspects of their financial kingdom from the palm of their hand. You may have heard the phrase, not your keys, not your crypto. With Monarch, you own your keys and seed, meaning you own your crypto. With Monarch, you can store, receive, send, swap, buy, sell, and earn interest on your crypto, track your portfolio, the news, the market cap, and more today. We're constantly adding new services and updates too. Learn more today by visiting monarchtoken.io or download the wallet for free today from Apple or Google.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Beards and Bitcoins. It's the crypto podcast for the man's man, and yes, the women who love them. We are super excited about our episode today. We get to speak with Leah Jonas, and she's the Director of Business Development for Celsius Network. We had a great conversation, man. What do you think?
Well, also, we found out that she's the cousin of the Jonas brothers. Is that correct? You guys will find out more info about that for sure in the podcast.
Absolutely. So, we all learned a little bit or two about what's going on and potentially how sales and business development could be what brings about mass adoption. So what'd you think about today's episode?
I thought it was good. I thought that there's definitely a lot of stuff that you guys are going to learn in regards to what we need to do in order to bring adoption, to bring this to the masses. And she gives a couple ideas that I think are very interesting that I hadn't thought about in terms of way to provide value for people that could possibly come into the crypto community. So you guys listen to this episode, let us know what you think. Don't forget to drop us a review on iTunes or whatever platform you are listening to. Let's go ahead and get into the interview.
All right, here it is. Leah Jonas with Celsius Network.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Beards and Bitcoins, the crypto podcast for the man's man and the women who love them. Today we have a special guest with us from Celsius. Leah, how are you doing?
I am doing awesome. Thank you guys for having me on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Super excited to have you on here. In case anyone's listening that doesn't know what Celsius Network is, it is a place where you can earn, borrow, and pay on the blockchain. Celsius lets you earn interest on your crypto. You can borrow against it. And there are no fees. Is that right, Leah?
No fees and no lockups, I think, is the more differentiating feature. There's no other companies out there right now that don't have any lockups, which is, really important, especially in the fast-moving industry that we currently are in.
Absolutely. And one of the things, there was an article that came out not too long ago that said that you guys are the fastest growing crypto lender. I think you got, 2.something billion worth of loans going, which is great. The story said, I think, over $1 billion is held with BitGo from the last year. So that's exciting that, must be keeping you guys pretty busy.
Yeah. So basically what the article was about and what we had published was that we had BitGo verify some of our numbers, and right now we're sitting right about $3 billion in loan origination over the last year. And then we have held about $1 billion with them in assets over the last year. So really our current AUM, I think, is creeping up on half 500 million. But that's what's been going in and out of the wallet. But yeah, it's definitely kind of outpaced a lot of the other crypto lenders in the space. And I attribute that a lot to our user-friendly, ethos, what we operate by, because we really went after the smaller crypto holders. We don't have any minimums, no lockups, all that good stuff. So I think that we spoke to an area of the industry that not a lot of people cared about.
So more importantly, do you have your own cartoon character?
Yeah, not only do I have my own cartoon character, but last year I was living in Berlin with the team, and I broke both my arms at that point on a biking accident. It's a long story. Actually, it's not. I was just excited for ramen noodles, and I fell off the bike. But the long and short of it is that they did make me a cartoon character that's a little monkey with 2 broken arms. So feel free to DM me. I am happy to share it.
Happy to share the monkey. That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
So, let's talk a little bit about what's going on right now with crypto. Like, obviously, the day we're recording this, the day after we had a huge drop, all the way from, I believe, 9,600 to 8,100, and not to get in the weeds on the price, but how does volatility like that affect Celsius?
It's actually very good. So the reason why we've grown so much is that, volatility within the market opens trading opportunities. We have about 200 funds onboarded with us, and that's a perfect time for them to borrow. Whether that's doing arbitrage, all the other trading strategies that there's a reason why I'm not in trading, but that's a peak time to actually borrow crypto and take advantage of that for a lot of the institutions that we work with. So our goal there is to just pass that along to the users, whether the price is up or down.
Yeah, because it's been great to, we were taking a look at, Celsius over the last year. And again, like what Ben said, it's not really to focus on the price, but to see, with the markets kind of go up and down, how they have and kind of some of the crazy situations we've seen. I mean, you guys have stayed, pretty much average, right around 5 cents, which, there's been a little fluctuation here and there. But, really, I think that's probably something that your investors and the people that are, hold the project close to heart it's been great to see, kind of keep consistent through some of the madness and market.
So we definitely waited. So we did things a little bit differently than the other ICOs that came out around our time, and that we waited over a year to list, which we wanted the product to be launched for a year before we did that, which puts us in, under Rule 144, regulatorily very safe area. And in doing so, I think I give a lot of credit to our executive team to find investors that truly believe in the project. Because I think there's a lot of projects that, if we wouldn't have been listing or if we wouldn't have been trading, people who wanted to flip coins or whatever, they would have been upset with that. But I am constantly astounded at the community that we have and how supportive they are. And that has allowed us to build the project we have, because we couldn't have done that without them. And the steadiness is awesome. But they've also just been very patient as we took the route. We forged our own path for sure in the industry. And I think that was necessary, because there's a reason why 90% of the other ICOs fail, right? They follow each other's leads and right off the cliff sometimes.
You were telling us before we went on air that you've been doing a lot of traveling, right, on behalf of Celsius?
Yeah. So I've been with the company for over a year and a half, since about January 2018. So December 2017, January 2018. And I have been fortunate enough to be able to travel to all the conferences with Alex, all the ones he's speaking at. And I just recently moved into a head of global partnerships position, which allows me to go to the different offices. We have one in Tel Aviv, one in London. We're, expanding and growing. So, it's been incredible to get to know all these different ecosystems and, the players within different countries. It's very different, I think, than the US.
Yeah, that's cool. So with all of the travel that you've done, what's the general consensus with adoption, or at least general understanding within crypto of just people in general, and not the bubble that we live in, or the vacuum chamber that we live in?
So it's really, really interesting. Sentiment has definitely changed, and it depends on where you go, right? So when I was living in Berlin last summer, there was just a general consensus that no one outside the industry wanted to touch crypto because of the massive downfall it had taken, right? It was just kind of oh yeah, you're part of that blow off. I think that living in Tel Aviv this summer, it's been a very different sentiment. Now, given Tel Aviv is also a very tech-forward city, and Israel is a tech-forward country, so that might be part of it, but everybody I talked to is just fascinated and had all these questions around what crypto was, what digital assets meant, all the different aspects of it, and they just wanted to understand. So that was really interesting. Over the last year, I've seen a major shift in terms of institutional traditional players being interested. We went to Paris Blockchain Week, and that was an incredible conference, Players Blockchain Summit in April, just because it came out right after the Paris regulation was passed. And there was just so many regulators and traditional institutions that they were there to learn. I think that what I've seen, if I had to sum it up, was that there was a major shift from them wanting to make money or wanting to just milk it for all it was to, I don't care, or getting away from it. And then slowly, I think that there's a lot more people who are willing to learn and admit that they don't understand the industry, which I think is really good, because unless we have regulators and influential people learning about it, then there's no hope of anything getting passed or getting pushed forward in our benefit.
Yeah. So obviously we just had Backed that just launched coming into the space, speaking of institutions. And if you look back at the history of Bitcoin, I mean, obviously, like when I got into Bitcoin, nobody knew what it was. And it's really started to change. Like you're saying, where, some of your bigger players are more interested. But do you think kind of the grassroots movement that kind of started Bitcoin and launched it, like, do you think that eventually those people are just going to be kind of out of luck and this is going to turn into something where it's really just like the stock market almost, where it's people with big money getting in, and then you got, maybe your retail investor that's savvy enough to get into stocks, they're savvy enough to get into Bitcoin? Or do you think, it will remain something where your average person can get in and make money?
I think that's a great question. And to be honest, I think it's on us. I think that the more we step back and say it has a life of its own, the more likely that scenario is, where, it's not accessible to the average person. I think if you look over the last 15 years, general investing has become out of the reach of the average person, right? IPOs are happening later and later and later. And the average Joe isn't benefiting from, any type of small scale investing at all, right? It's just not within the bubble in which you can operate. So I think that crypto presents that benefit, though I think it's on us to take a hard look at how we're going to present it and how we're going to make it accessible to the average person. I think that unfortunately, all too often, this becomes a club that, we're either saying learn it and accept this ethos, or we don't want you, right? And to be frank, like, that's just a really naive Western way of looking at things. Like, there's people all over the world, the people that we profess to be able to help or we pay lip service to, that they don't have the time to go on Coinbase and take a course on it, right? They don't have the opportunity to do that. Let's put the average American aside and let's just say globally, we shouldn't have to require someone to adopt banks aren't your friends, a decentralized finance like mentality in order to benefit. And if we make it so that that's the entry point, then yes, we will lose people and smart money will be the only money getting in. I think that the most interesting areas to me are the ones in which this is a second layer solution that benefits the average person. And then, of course, the door's open if they want to go deeper. But how do we make a bridge that's not super difficult? Because if you do make that bridge super difficult, then yeah, smart money will be the only one getting in. And they'll be manipulating it to their benefit and making all of these rules and regulations that it's only for accredited investors, and it's, there's these crazy minimums on being able to earn interest on things, or there's these crazy hurdles that you have to jump of, like proof of income before you can even invest in the ICO, like the credit investor laws or anything like that. End of the day, if we don't want it to be a exclusive game, then we have to be more serious about how we're getting people in and presenting value to someone without having them come to our side first. We have to come to them.
So what do you think? What do you think we can do to make that easier for people? Other than it sounds like maybe you visited crypto Twitter because there's so much of like, oh, you're a noob, you don't do anything, you don't know. Oh, this person made a call and it was wrong, and all this. It's like, yeah, nobody's perfect, and people have to start somewhere. And it disgusts me looking at people trying to push new people, out of the space. But what do you think that on an individual level we can do? And then of course we can talk about maybe what you guys at Celsius specifically are doing.
So let me go actually one less than even crypto Twitter, right? So I'll give you a great example. I'm going to say this, hopefully Alex doesn't kill me because I think this is a great idea, but I'm not close to executing it. And if someone else wants to execute it, I think microloans are much needed all over the world, right? That's a very predatory space for the majority of the world. Like lending in Southeast Asia is upwards of 25% to get a loan, right? Microloans in Africa or South America, all of these things. Now, we're not going to get them to buy Bitcoin in order to take a 50% LTV, right? Why would they do that? Our business model as it currently is not suited for that. But in realizing all of this wealth that we've found, we can actually help funnel that and spread that wealth. And this is what I mean. If you had collateral as, a crypto holder, you got into it really early, you're holding a lot of collateral. And if there is a micro lending company in, let's say Venezuela, and their loans are very small, right? Maybe it's $1,000, $2,000. And you posted the collateral, because we have to do LTVs that are lower because of volatility. You posted collateral of, $3,000 worth of BTC. This guy over here needs $1,500. We're basically sitting in the middle. We're supplying the capital and we're funneling back the interest rate. If that interest rate is 10%, we cut his cost of capital, what it takes for him to borrow money to start a farm or buy a car, by 1/3, right? And as long as that lending company is based where they are and they have a low default rate and the risk is, reasonable, we have a pool built up that covers that risk. That is the kind of thing that helps you guys realize additional value on crypto, but more importantly, it helps spread the benefit of it to people who might not know it yet. And if they dig down, they'll realize I'm getting this loan at 10% yearly instead of 30% because some guy in America is willing to post $3,000 worth of collateral. He's getting most of my money back, most of the interest is coming back. But both sides win. And that's the kind of benefit, those are the kind of mechanisms that we need to create, because when you start to pull the curtain back and you say to that guy, you might not be able to get on crypto Twitter and learn everything, but you've already realized the benefit of this digital asset, right? You've already seen the benefit. And then that's the gateway drug. The gateway drug is presenting value first, and then the ethos second. And when he starts to realize, wait, how did I, give money so cheap, or how was I able to do this? And then he starts to explore, and then he falls in the rabbit hole that we all do. That's great. If he doesn't even do that, both sides still won, right? And that's adoption. And that's where you start to see people in the westernized world say, I can take 10% of my holdings or 10% of my net worth, put it into crypto at, even purchase $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, and I can still get this interest that's not available to me in bank. So why would I not do that? Yeah. So I think that we really need to focus on how, that's just one example in lending. I'm sure there's numerous examples, but we need to focus on how do we provide value to the average person around the world without them having to learn it. Because there's so much wealth that was realized, but it's so concentrated right now and often in the wrong places, I think.
I think that's great. And I like your perspective on mass adoption, right? Because a lot of the projects that you talk to, or, companies where, all right, we need Bitcoin to be adopted, more. And a lot of that perspective is from payment solutions, so that I can buy goods. Your perspective comes from a completely different mindset than, a payment gateway. This is, how can we get people to start using crypto, not just to buy a bag of coffee or to buy whatever, to actually start to fund their life.
Right. The thing is that when you pay on Celsius, like if you pay and sell on a loan or you receive interest and sell, you get a bonus, right? So it's much like a B&B model where there's benefit. What happens when you apply that same model to the situation I just described, right? So maybe the farmer in Venezuela is paying 10% on $1,500 that he borrowed to start a farm. But if we say, what's the incentive model for him to buy crypto? If you pay this back in BTC, we don't have to do a conversion. So we'll cut that conversion rate out. And so then maybe it's 9%, maybe it's 8%, at what point would that be most beneficial? And then how do you present adoption and not force adoption? Not say the only way my project is going to be successful, the only way crypto is going to be successful is if we can buy a cup of coffee. Instead, how can we make it successful without that? And then present an option to the people who are seeing the benefit of, it would be to your benefit to join in. You don't have to, but if you do, here's the mechanism which you can do it. And then, you get into all the usability and all that stuff, and all of that is very important. But I think that too often we're thinking about it in the exact wrong way. We're saying usability first, and then people will come. No, value first.
Yeah.
People will come. Usability will be driven by the users.
You got to create value first, because no one will want to spend something if you don't actually know what the potential value of it's going to turn into. Because I think a lot of people are scared, like, no, I'm not going to go buy that mattress on overstock.com because when the bull run hits, I'll be sleeping on a $100,000 bed, which to me would be a waste of Bitcoin. Right.
And so then everybody's holding on to it. Right. So I think, and you're completely right. You have to look at both sides, right? So like, what's the value for the new person, and how are we going to provide that? But then also, how do we adapt to the behaviors that we already see in crypto? Like, I think the biggest issue is that so many people in this industry have their heads in the sand about the historical behaviors that we're already seeing. Like, they're trying to maneuver their way around the fact that people are storing this as a store of value, right? They see it as a hedge against whatever. They see it as a hedge against the traditional markets, or they see it as a long-term investment tool, or whatever. They're not selling it, they're not using it. So how do you face that fact and say, let's build stuff around that? Maybe that will change, but let's not bet on it. Instead of saying, oh, well, if we just create a faster network, they're going to spend it. It's like, well,
people are betting against it. That's actually what they're doing when people are holding and not spinning, is they're betting against it ever being a currency.
Right, exactly. But so many people, I'm in sales, right? So I just hired someone new in Tel Aviv, and I'm training him up on the sales process and everything. And he's had a lot of calls with me, and I'm drilling down, get to the know, right? That's my 100% in all things in life. Get to the know. Don't be afraid of it, because you will waste your time if you're afraid of that failure. Failure is just an iteration. You just got to go back a few steps and turn left instead of right. If we're looking at this and we're trying to force people spending it instead of saying, wait a second, that's not what's happening right now. We have to face this head on and adapt. Then instead of going back a few steps and turning left instead of right, we're just going down this road to try to force something that's not happening. So, you have to guide it a little bit, but pay attention to the market, pay attention to what people are already doing, and don't be afraid of the fact that might not line up with what you thought it was going to be, and that's okay. Just build different things.
Well, some people have a really hard time letting go of that. There's a whole cult of Bitcoin maximalists out there, and they're just so adamant that this is going to work. We are going to make this a currency and people will spend it one day. And all the evidence is pointing against that, and it is like at some point you got to punt. you know?
It could happen. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not going to happen. I'm just saying adapt to what currently is happening.
Yeah.
Don't hope for one day it's going to be different, you know? Don't try to force it before it happens. If you say, okay, people aren't spending it as currency now, that's okay. I'm going to build things that are modeled around it being a store of value for the time being. And if that's how people enter the market, if people find Bitcoin, they see it as a store of value and they use these products, then maybe more people will come in and then it will stabilize. And then as a result, it would be much more viable as a currency. But you can't skip that middle step. Like you can't sit there and say, well, that's not what's happening right now, but you know, instead of letting it take its natural course, I want to skip to the end of it because that's going to be the most beneficial for me. Like, they have blinders on, I think, sometimes.
Big time.
To get to a place where Bitcoin is stable, just look at what happened yesterday. I mean, to think how far in the future it's going to have to be for that thing to be stable enough for people to say, okay, now we feel like it's not going to go up and people are going to feel safe and secure. Like, man, that is going to be such a long time. So I do think in the middle, we got to figure out, what to do about it.
Because it will take millions of people with tiny amounts of Bitcoin in order for that to happen. That's what it will take, right? And I'm not an economist. Hopefully someone doesn't really on Twitter against me and be like, that's but I think that, you need to get in front of tons and tons of people and give them a use case first, like we were saying with value, and then let them buy in at $10. Don't make the only use cases traders trading at, thousands or millions of dollars to realize the value. Because otherwise that's the only people that will come in.
Right.
There's just no reason why even my family who's, here in the US and educated is going to do that, let alone someone who is in a different country who doesn't have an education and dealing with 300 other problems is going to say, you know what, I heard this one person talk about Bitcoin one time. Maybe I should educate myself and diversify some of my assets and something I have no idea.
Yeah.
No, those conversations are not happening in some parts of the world. That's for sure.
And I'll say one more thing about this because, I have a lot of friends in venture. I worked in venture for a little while, and I think that we live in a bubble. And in traveling around, that's the biggest critique from people about Americans in general, is our lack of understanding for geopolitics, our lack of understanding for world affairs. And I think that you can deduce that down to what's going on in crypto or what's going on in tech and then what's going on in crypto. What's going on in tech is that we're creating a bunch of chatbots. They don't benefit anybody but everybody working in a tech company, right? We're building products for ourselves and no one else. I think if you deduce that down in crypto, once again, we don't need another DEX or we don't need another, custodian or whatever it is. We're building products for ourselves, and it's our lack of understanding of what's needed around the world that leads us down that road, because we build what we know and we build what we think others need. And maybe it's, maybe we all need to take a field trip to like the countries that we talk about on these panels all the time and spend a couple months there and say, wow, do I really need to do this for them? Or like, do they really need an exchange with better usability? No. What do they actually need to get them into crypto, or what products would serve them? And maybe then you'll get a little bit better adoption.
I think that for the people in these countries that have hyperinflation or, super legalistic regimes and things like that, like it's pretty easy to understand for those people why they want to get in it. It's easy to understand for the exact opposite type of person, like that lives in a pretty free country and it has a lot of money to invest. It's all the people in the middle that I feel like, that's really where the people, where the amount of people in crypto can balloon. But that, like, I have a hard time explaining to a 30-year-old guy that works in a cubicle that doesn't do investing, like why he should care about crypto, or, 18 or 19-year-old on the street that I interviewed recently that said, I like cash because I can flex what I got. Like, it's
there's no value, no real value for them. We're too focused on those two ends of the spectrum but there's a whole mess of people in between that were just, you go to, I was in Bacchal, Azerbaijan, a layover.
Yeah.
And if you go there and you say, look, you guys are living great middle-class lives, invest in this crypto. They're gonna be like, why? Like, what's the point, right? Even in hyperinflation countries, to say to someone, you've seen massive losses in your net worth based on the government, but hop to this because it's not tied to a bank, but it's still massively volatile. It's still even a hard sell. I just think that if you're going to sell those people, the same way that I learned understanding about the lending market and understand how predatory it is, there's probably a million more use cases out there that people just aren't exploring. I had no idea how predatory the lending market was in Southeast Asia or in South America until I really started looking into it, until I started Celsius, really. And I don't think there's enough people out there being like, what are actual issues in these countries and how can decentralization solve them, and how are we building the products around the issues instead of taking a product and trying to shove it into an issue. It's
like those funny GIFs or videos that you see on YouTube where it's like the guy figures out the dumbest way to cut a watermelon. It's like, this is, like with some of the projects that we're building or doing, it's like, well, just use a knife and cut it.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's an issue, but we have a lot of smart people. I mean, I've met more incredibly passionate people and smart people in this industry than I think I ever will. That's why I'll never leave crypto.
Oh, I thought you were going to say on this podcast. On this podcast, you've met.
That was an autocorrect. No, more and more people are migrating and are interested, but you have to set that precedent and we have to face it head on and be like, you're coming in, let's look at this differently, and don't necessarily always just follow the train of what's the next buzzword.
I know, right?
Is it SEO this week? Is it IEO this week?
SEOs have been the next big thing for 3 years now. So it's so ridiculous. And, I had a guy message me on Instagram and he's like, he's got some new token and he wants me to look at it. I'm just like, really what you said earlier, like, we have enough stuff. How about we develop more of what we've got and make the products that we have better and show the usability instead of like, I really feel like this trend right now of thinking you're going to just start some kind of brand new IEO and all of a sudden it's going to go, to the moon. Like,
I'm gonna make 100 million, and
that's
not reality anymore. At least not in this market. It may be in 2 years, but it's not now.
Look, it's not just crypto though. So obviously, like Alex, our founder, 7 companies, like has an inventor firm, all that stuff. I was in charge of sorting through a lot of some like messages when I first got like a lot of admin stuff, and God, did I learn so much about. Not to bring up value, but like how people pitch. When I got out of college, everybody was like, add value. Like, if you want to go after something, go, follow a leader or figure out where you want to go and then add value or, present in this way. The number of people that pitch like unicorns and they think they're pitching it the perfect way because they're pitching it and they're saying, I read this article that you wrote. Here's my project, want to hop on a 15-minute call? No. It's the most ridiculous thing ever to sit there and say that I have a new unicorn that's going to be the next Uber or the next, Airbnb. And I read an article, so you as an entrepreneur should take time out of your day, or even as an influencer or a podcaster, like anybody, read through this and let me talk to you about it for 15 minutes. Like, that was just the most insane thing to me. Yeah. But it did teach me a lot because I probably would have been in that scenario if I wouldn't have read through all of them and realized that it's not really beneficial and that's not how you should approach it.
What would you say is the best way to approach something like that?
That's a great question. I think, one, if you can, and this is also location-wise, meet that person in person.
Yeah.
Try to go to their talks, go understand why you want to be there. And then you got to try to figure out what you can add, what value you can add. Presenting a project or presenting what you do as a flat, it's not beneficial. It would be much more beneficial if like you approach it as, this is a problem that I see, this is a problem that you've mentioned. You have to listen a lot. A lot of people think sales is about talking. It's about listening. You have to figure out what they need, why it matters to them, right? If I was to start a company and have to go out and raise money, do your homework. Figure out what they've invested in the past and why they invested in it, right? Most founders talk about their investments or their portfolio companies, at least opaque terms, on their interviews, or they write about them or whatever. Figure out why that was. If they invested in a transportation company, what did they think that was going to solve? And then if you have something that's related, say, hey, this is why I'm building this. I think it speaks to your thesis because of this. And some people say, I don't have the time for that, or, we have to do a lot of outreach, but it's just spinning your wheels otherwise. You're just really sitting there and doing spray and pray, and it's better to reach out to 5 people that you really understand and know that this is the best project for them to invest in, rather than reaching out to 50 on LinkedIn and hoping that someone bites. If you're looking for, like, job-wise, I've given a lot of people advice on this. People want to get into crypto. Understand where there's gaps. And like I said, know where the no is, because they might not need you right then, and you can't fit that in, right? If they just hired a bunch of people for trading and you see that, or you talk to someone and they say that, don't keep trying at that. Find where a better fit for you is. But if you listen to the founder, or you listen to the team member talking, and they talk about where their expansion plans are, you fit your talents to serve that need, instead of saying, I'm good at this and this and this and this, please hire me.
Right.
It's really about figuring out what someone else wants and what someone else needs first, and then figuring out if it fits, and looking at it objectively instead of coming in with an agenda, because it might not work, and you have to be okay with that.
One of the earliest things I had learned about sales, and this is in the industry I work in, within the collegiate athletics business, but people like to buy something. They don't want to be sold on something.
Yeah. You have to give them a reason to buy. Yeah. And that requires listening to them. Knowing why this fits them.
It's like very interesting how much like the sales and what we need for adoption conversation lines up,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like the whole industry just needs like some actual salespeople to sell the world on the idea, not just, we got a ton of projects and we got 4 or 5 different versions of each project, but damn it, just buy it.
It requires people who are like really listening and paying attention, and have a good handle. I think the issue is that, one, our channels and ways of communication, we're so concentrated, right? Like, capital is concentrated, talent is concentrated, and decentralization allows for it to be spread out. I love the ICL model. I think it's great. I wish that we wouldn't have bastardized it. I literally very much dislike what ventures become. And I think that all this concentration of capital and all this concentration of talent creates these echo chambers that we currently live in. But more and more people just need to go to these different places, and we need to get, input from people from all over the world. And when we're building this, but unfortunately we don't really have that right now. We have a bunch of, no offense, dudes on Twitter.
Wait, what?
Oh, guys.
I'm a dude on Twitter, okay? My gosh.
Dude, the guys on Twitter, it's a mess.
Some of them are so annoying. Sorry if you're an annoying dude on Twitter.
Yeah. Here's a pro tip. If you're listening to this, do not DM a girl in crypto on Twitter more than once or twice. She saw it. She saw it.
Wow. I don't think I ever have. So there we go. If you're a girl and you have 2 consecutive DMs from me, then screenshot it. I would like to see it. One of my hopes with blockchain technology is that will actually make some of those things easier, like actually monitoring your child's phone. I think those are some good use cases. And I mean, if we look at all the weird stuff that goes on, like what happened on YouTube where they demonetize a bunch of channels because of like weird comments towards kids and stuff like that. I'm hoping that blockchain is going to allow us to not only help track our own kids or whatever phones are on our network, if that's what we choose to do, but also kind of get rid of creepers, people that can come anonymously on the web and create social media accounts and like literally commit crimes by saying things to children, which happens every day.
Yeah. Well, I think there's twofold there, right? Like there's the good side of it, which is like inappropriate pictures or dark web stuff that can be tracked. And hopefully that will help. And then there's the bad part of it, which is I hope that none of the interactions that I had on the web when I was 13 years old get on a blockchain. Right? Like the only hope that it's going to be gone at some point is that was not around. But maybe, that will actually cause a little bit more awareness amongst kids because it's memorialized.
They're out there doing stupid stuff for sure. No question.
Yeah, I don't know if you can fit logic into the head of a teenager.
Well, I think that if you were to look at the internet when the internet started and look at what it is now, like we never could have realized the capabilities of what it could do. And I think that's where we're at with blockchain. Like right now, it sounds like a binary choice. Like it's either like we use it to control and monitor and track because everything's traceable, or we just say, let it go. Everybody can do, it's a free for all for everyone. And I'm hoping there's something kind of in the middle that will be a solution that kind of makes sense for everyone that we can't actually, visualize right now. So.
Right. Yeah, I don't think that I think that what's very hard to understand, and I sat down with Alex once and had like a long conversation about this because he was there in the very beginning days of VoIP and the internet. And in so many ways, how we conceptualize things or how we whether it's build products or imagine things is usually based on previous experience, right?
Exactly. That's all we can do, really. That's all we can imagine is previous experience,
The only way that we really are able to contextualize stuff is based on previous knowledge. And so we keep trying to fit blockchain into a context that makes sense to us based on previous things that we've encountered. But I think it's much different. And when he described it to me, he goes, if technology is a building and the base level is like silicon chips and, you needed, or the base level is like electricity and infrastructure and then silicon chips, and you need each of those levels to build the next level, then blockchain is the next level and it will eat whatever is below it, right? Like the internet will be an application on the blockchain, not the other way around. Very, very few people can visualize that or imagine that. And I think that it's a matter of testing, and we're going to fail and we're going to figure out ways that it doesn't work, and it will slowly come into being the way that it was meant to. But yeah, it's not something that we can sit there and be like, oh, of course this is how it's going to work. We have no idea what it looks like when you can monetize data or transfer it or do any of that stuff. So it's a matter of being like agile enough to be like, try to build, but also watch the ecosystem develop in its natural way.
That's well said.
All right, guys. Well, I guess that brings us to the end of our episode here. Leah, thank you so much for joining us. It has definitely been very great. I really like how we talked about sales and how that really kind of is equivalent to adoption in a lot of ways, like how we're all basically independent salesmen for crypto. So hopefully our listeners got something out of that, and we definitely look forward to having you on again. You got anything, J Chains?
No, thank you for joining us. If you want to tell everybody where they can find you.
So I am on Twitter at Leah and Jonas with the A, not E. Everybody thinks my name is Jones.
I also thought it was Jones.
I know. I always say like the Jonas Brothers, even though I'm not related to them.
You're the sister.
Or I'm the cousin. Quick thing, like literally when I was in college, sometimes I would say that I was their cousin as a joke. Sometimes I couldn't correct someone before they would walk away to the party. Yeah. So there's probably like 12 to 15 people out there floating around thinking they met their cousin. So if you ever encounter someone that said they met the Jonas Brothers cousin at University of Arizona, just go along with it. Support my lie. Anyways, Leah and Jonas on Twitter. I'm on Telegram at LNJ. You can find me at conferences all over. If you ever want to reach out, I'm always happy to answer questions. And you can follow Celsius at Celsius Network on almost all platforms. or hello app, which we can answer any questions you have about earning interest in crypto.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We had a great time chatting with you today.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you guys so much for having me on.
All right.
See ya.
Thanks. Bye.
You got this shit locked and roll.